Hello everybody, and welcome back to another Pushing Film live stream. And it's been a while since I've done a book sharing live stream. Today I want to talk a little bit about The Americans by Robert Frank. It's just one of those books that I think has to be mentioned at some point or another. And I'm assuming that a lot of you guys who might be watching this, whether it's live right now or post stream, probably have some knowledge of this book, or maybe even have a copy yourself. So let me know in the comments if you already have a copy, which version you have. This is the latest version of the book, and just even sharing some of your general thoughts on it. So thanks for tuning in, and if you're new to these live streams, they usually go on a little bit longer than some of the produced videos, but in this one I'm going to try and keep it fairly short because I feel like there's not too much more I can add to the discussion about this book. There's so much information about it already out there. So I hope that the audio and video is working all right. Let me know if it's not too good for whatever reason. But my backstory with this book is that before I even had a photo book collection of my own, before I even think I owned any photo books, maybe I had one or none, this was one of the first photo books that I borrowed from a friend. Another photo book that I borrowed from a friend, one of the earliest exposures I had to photo books, was Dream Life by Trent Park. Both of those books, this one and Trent Park's book, really are what ignited my passion for looking at photography in the form of books and getting more into photography, and eventually getting my own copy of The Americans. So it looks like the live stream's working all right. Got Jen in the comments. I actually ordered this book this morning. Wow, nice. Yeah, it's just one of those books I think that anyone who really goes down that rabbit hole of photography, and maybe street photography particularly, will end up landing on this book at some point. Mike Freeland Photo, just discovering Frank's work. Will got that edition last week. Nice. And sound is good. Thanks, Second Bob, letting me know in the Napa Valley. Cool. And yeah, thanks for any of the regulars for joining on the stream today. So, as I was saying, if we look at some, Google or YouTube searches for Robert Frank, you will find a lot of information about him. So I'm not going to go too much into repeating some of that heavy background information. Robert Frank was actually a Swiss photographer. So ironically, the book being called The Americans, something that I didn't initially realize, but he was originally from Switzerland, moved to America, and photographed this series that's in this book during the 1950s in America, just with his 35mm camera, and driving across the United States and documenting the contents of this book with the intention, and this is, I think, one of the significant things about it, with the intention of actually putting it together in a book. So a lot of the times you might have a photo book where it's actually a culmination of various work that an artist has been making over a period of time, or it might be that it's just select works that sort of just come together. But I'm pretty sure this book was put together with the intention that it was going to be a book. And there was something like 28,000 photographs that Robert Frank made during that journey, documenting all this sort of stuff. But then only 80 something, I think, made it into this book. So it's a great book to look into. One of my main purposes of doing this live stream and leaving this video online, if you're watching later, is that so that if you're not already aware of this book, you are now. And if you're not too familiar with it, or you've just been sleeping on it, consider adding this one to your collection, or maybe do what I do and just borrow a copy from a friend. If you know someone that has one, go borrow a copy of it. But if you do buy it, this latest edition is fairly cheap. It was out of print for a while with the previous version. I think there's been 4 versions or something. So I think there's actually an index in the back of this book. I'm going to switch back to another view here for you guys to have a better look at the book. Bear with me. So it's a fairly small book, but if we go to the back here, there's been various editions ever since the 50s. And I think the previous Stidle edition was published in 2008, and that one was out of print for a while. This latest one was published in 2019, I believe, if that's correct. But there might come a time when this Sorry about that focus, guys. Book isn't so easy to get your hands on. Yeah, that focus doesn't really want to cooperate. Okay, seems all right now. But yeah, it's a nice version of the book. And I think it ran me about $30 US, 30, 40. I put a link to the Amazon link that I used to buy the book in the description of this video. It is an affiliate link, so if you choose to use that, it does throw me a small commission. But whether you use that or not, check it out on any of your other favorite bookstores. I'm sure you'll have no trouble finding this book and getting yourself a copy of it if you're after it. Okay, and someone just asking in the comments, how did that book inform your own work? If it did, I'm curious. Well, I think it's just an overall subconscious sort of absorption that happens from any photo books that I know, for myself at least, that I look at, that makes its way maybe into some of my work. But I look at myself as someone extremely, inexperienced compared to some of these greats, obviously. So it's still very minor if in any way it has influenced my work. But if you're not familiar with it, this book of Robert Frank's is supposedly divided into 4 somewhat distinct chapters, all of them starting off with an image of the American flag. Sorry, that autofocus is going to be a pain, but bear with me. That's the first American flag and chapter, and then you'll have a series of images with the main focus of this book sort of being on the social landscape of America in the 1950s. A lot of the themes throughout are things like, the racial divide and socioeconomic aspects of America at the time. And yeah, I won't really go too much into that because, like I said, there's so much out there already. And I've barely even put together my own thoughts on this book in a way that I feel like I can do it justice. So the best thing I can do, I think, is expose you to this book if you're not already aware of it, and just to sort of give you a little sneak peek of some of the great imagery made by Robert Frank in this book. But yeah, if you just think about that aspect of shooting 20-something thousand photos and then narrowing it down to such a tight selection, and this latest version, I believe Robert Frank, before passing away, had some influence on re-editing the book slightly, some slight cropping and maybe reselection of a few images, but most of it is the original selection from the first version of the book, as far as I know. So it's just so heavy on aspects of American culture in general. And one of the thoughts I wanted to sort of share, sorry guys, I'll switch back to this camera. One of the thoughts I wanted to share and sort of put out there is, for myself at least, having not, grown up anywhere near this time, this is based on post-World War II America. So for myself, not being really someone who grew up in that time, I still appreciate this book, but I wonder if someone who perhaps watching did really experience a lot of the themes shown throughout this book in a more direct way, does it influence the way that you sort of feel about this book, the way you look at it, the way you read it? It doesn't mean necessarily that someone younger just takes it on surface value, but, let's say you're a non-photographer. Does this book really resonate with someone as much as it perhaps did closer to the 50s or 60s? So that's something I kind of think about. And also for someone who is not an American. So, of course, Robert Frank himself not originally being an American, but someone who didn't ever live in America, for example, who's never been there, like myself, I still have a good level of appreciation for this book, but I just wonder if I would ever appreciate it as much as someone who is more directly connected to the themes in this book, like the racism and social injustice that's a heavy theme throughout this book, and so on. Of course, that comes in different flavors in a lot of Western countries, including here, for example. So I think there are reoccurring themes throughout cultures that can be related to throughout this book. So that cover image is a great example. I think I put a bookmark in there. So it's just an image of what we would call a tram here. I think they call it a trolley there. But just showing that racial segregation that was typical in that era. And yeah, just some great, powerful imagery. I won't go on too long. Just want to share a few thoughts there and get this book out there to you guys. Another thing I wanted to touch on was, what are your recommended books that you feel like have some level of relation to The Americans by Robert Frank? Someone in the comments, Jack Kerouac's forward at the beginning is brilliant. Did you read it? Yeah, I did. Yeah, so definitely read it. Read Jack Kerouac's intro in the book, the forward. Brady, what's up, my guy? Hey man, how's it going? I actually found this book a bit underwhelming, but I adore color. Okay, so that's an interesting point. That's what I mean, is that someone from a different generation or demographic may not appreciate this book in the same way that, let's say, someone from America or someone who grew up a little bit longer ago. Story itself is still great, but I feel like there was a bit of limit due to black and white, as I think color represents time also. Yeah, you could argue that. Kaylee Crabtree, hi, how's it going? Yeah, so for example, that's a good point made by Brady there, because what I was actually going to get to was that if we have another book that I could sort of, I'm saving this for another live stream, but if any of you guys aren't familiar with Sebastião Salgado's work, and it's not really the same content in any way. It's just a coincidence, I guess, that this book is called Other Americas, and it's part of the reason why I chose to share this. But this is a completely alternative body of work to what I feel like Robert Frank's is. And because I'm also not in any way associated with South American culture, which is what you'll heavily find in this book, I think I actually prefer this body of work as as a book that I enjoy looking at. Even though Robert Frank's book is often called one of the most important photo books of the 20th century, this is another book that I would highly recommend to you with a completely different part of American culture. This is South American culture, also black and white work, and something that I just thought was an interesting counterpart maybe to Robert Frank's work by another great photographer, Brazilian photographer, Sebastião Salgado. So this is one of my favorite black and white books here, as well as The Americans. But I just thought I'd have to mention this one to you guys if you are interested in this stuff. And maybe you already have Robert Frank's book, but you've never heard of Sebastião Salgado, so I thought I would share that. Stories in photo books don't do anything for me. I'm interested in color and form. Yeah, interesting. So it might be a different thing. I think there was obviously a massive shift towards color in the late 20th century. Felix, might be good to look into Gordon Parks' segregation story. Very inspiring. Yeah, I've actually been meaning to get some of Gordon Parks' books. I've actually got a couple of them on my wish list. Hey, Coops, how's it going, man? Salgado's work's epic. His work goes under the radar, I think. Yeah, that's why I thought I'd have to mention that, because you've got The Americans and you've got Other Americas, Robert Frank. Both have similar looking covers, at least with these versions I have, with the black and white sort of look. But yeah, I kind of can't really mention one without the other. And one last book I just thought I'd mention, just because it's something I picked up in the more recent times, and it's a more recent, I'd call, contemporary photographer. His name is Adrian Otero Villa, and this book is called Becoming an American. So again, you have a non-North American photographer documenting their view and version of the United States of America. So in this book, if you guys aren't familiar with Adrian's work, he actually has a YouTube channel, and I think the channel is called AOWS, OWS. I've put a link in the video description so you can check that out. The link is to his website where he's selling this book, but it's a great photo book. I think he made this only in the last couple of years, and I just thought this would be a nice little one to mention if you want something from a more independent, sort of like a newer contemporary photographer to check out. And it's just another interesting counterpoint to Robert Frank's social landscape. I think Adrian focuses a lot more on the actual landscape and the topographic landscape, and maybe how the social landscape influences some of this stuff. So yeah, just more beautiful black and white work. I always wonder if maybe Robert Frank was an influence for Adrian, but this is a great little book to check out. Just give you a quick little breeze through here. So yeah, a lot of nice landscape work, black and white, high contrast stuff. And if you don't watch his YouTube channel, I highly recommend his channel. He has such nice vlogs and way of speaking and sharing thoughts. So very, very authentic guy, very authentic channel. Highly recommend checking him out. So yeah, I'm going to try and not let this go on too long. So that's all I really wanted to say about the Robert Frank book, The Americans. I know it wasn't too much, but I just wanted to get it out there in case you guys weren't familiar and maybe hear some of your thoughts in the comments now or later on. So I'll just end the video with just sort of checking through and going over some of the comments in the live chat. Yes, to Gordon Park's work. Yeah, nice. So I definitely need to get some of Gordon Park's stuff. Jen suggesting Invisible Man by Gordon Parks is amazing. Cool. Invisible Man. Sorry, guys. Camera's still good. Cool. Any Bresson works, always nice cross-section of wherever he was. Yep. A good comparison might be Vivian Maier's work being from the 20th century, American-based, but also color at times, and I much prefer it. Yeah. Yeah, good one, Brady. Actually, I did a book sharing live stream on one of Vivian Maier's books called A Photographer Found, and I really liked that book. I'm not sure if you've seen that one, but that one actually has a bit of her black and white work, but I think mostly color. I really like that one by Vivian Maier. And yeah, she's such an interesting character as well. Such a low-key person channel. I think you're talking about Adrian. Yeah, so definitely check out Adrian's channel. Felix, Eugene W. Smith. Yes, most definitely. Yeah. Say recommended photo books by Roy de Carava if you like Gordon Parks. Okay. So yeah, I just thought it would be nice to do another one of these book sharing live streams. It's been a little while since I did one, and I can't remember what the last one I did was. It might have been an Alex Webb book, but I have collected a few more photo books since that last one, and I definitely plan to do more. So give me your suggestions in the comments for any other photo books, any of your thoughts on Robert Frank's The Americans, how it really holds up now as opposed to the past. Is it one of those must-have books in your opinion? I think it is for any photographer and especially street photographer. And yeah, I think that's about it, guys. I'm actually going to be dropping a video on the channel tomorrow morning. So if you're watching this live, there'll be a video coming out tomorrow morning. I'm going to be heading to Tasmania for a little while for a little holiday, assuming that coronavirus doesn't do a power slide around the corner, shit on the plans, and go around for another loop around the track, but hopefully not. I think it should work out. And maybe while there, I'll definitely be doing some photography, but might also put together some video for a vlog. We'll see. But yeah, thanks again, as always, for all the support on the channel, for joining on these little streams and subscribing, all that stuff. So yeah, just checking there's no more comments. Cool. All right, guys. Thanks for joining this live stream. I'm going to end it there. Enjoy the rest of your day or night, depending where you are. Signing out.